Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Inside the GM Studio, a podcast all about the tabletop RPG hobby. I'm your host, Matt.
And I am David.
And this week, we have, with our game, our Barbarians of Lemura game, was originally a very pulp-inspired game, where each session was its own little saga in its own, and now we are going on the third session of what's going to be almost the same saga, and I realized I should have been taking a lot more notes. I've not been used to taking notes for sessions like how we do in the D&D game, and after last night's session, it's like, man, I should have been taking a lot more notes.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's funny because we just had the community question last week about note taking, and we were kind of like, don't overdo it. Whatever, don't overdo it. It's fine. So,
well, towards the end,
yeah, I wanted
even you were like, man, these names that I came up with these names, and they're fucking weird because they're the sword and sorcery names. They got weird Egyptian, almost like spin to them. But you started putting out these names. I was like, I should be writing this down. Why aren't I writing this down?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to do a little bit more kind of layered of a plot. There's some political intrigue, and I'm trying to incorporate some investigative and politicking elements. Those elements are largely falling short because of the character's capabilities, but it's going all right, I think. As long as there's enough intrigue there, I don't think the players need to solve problems in a specific way, so long as they can kind of go down the path to solve them in that way.
All right. Yeah, what do you think? What are you thinking of the longer saga for the game?
I don't mind it. I wanted it to be a little bit longer because I was realizing, like, wow, we're doing like 1 or 2 sessions, and I don't want to keep giving out, like, 1, 2, or 3 advancement points for just 1 or 2 sessions. And so it's like, if we're getting more to 3 or 4, so it's like I wanted there to be a little bit longer of a quest in there to make the players earn a little bit, because like everybody's gotten a decent amount of advancement, improved their characters like a little bit already. And so I wanted there to be a little bit more of a layered approach, maybe a little bit more grounded and gritty, with more moving parts and different NPCs and different factions. I thought that would be more intriguing. I don't want it to drag on as long as like a normal D&D adventure does, but I'm okay with going, until you resolve these to your satisfaction. I don't know exactly how that will be, given that I've opened a decent amount of plot threads, and the characters you're getting some gold. You're doing all right. So that's you could at any point just decide, you know what, we got enough gold. Let's get the fuck out of here. I don't know what we're doing. I don't got to solve this whole city's problems. I got enough money to live on for a while. I'm out.
Yeah. All right. Last episode, I said that I would be talking about everything that's coming out of Gen Con this year, and Gen Con just ended. Yeah, well, this morning actually. Today was the last day of Gen Con, and boy, howdy, there was a lot more than I was expecting to come out in news for tabletops, as Gen Con I'd say is very heavy into board games more than in anything else, like out of card games, trading card games, tabletop role-playing games, the very, very little bit of video games, quote unquote, that they get. They're more board game heavy. But it seemed this year all the big news was coming out of the tabletop RPG section, especially for a lot of the some of the new heavy hitters that are out there, like Daggerheart. Daggerheart had a bunch of reveals that came out for Gen Con this year. Starting with, let's see, where are we going to go? Class packs. Class packs, I think, is more of a good, cheaper route instead of doing class books like WotC has done in the past. Because Daggerheart is more focused on the cards that go to create your characters and show your abilities, what your class does, and all that. They can just sell you a little pack of cards for any classes, subclasses that they come up with in the future, and it becomes this nice little cheaper way that people can get some content. Right now, each class pack is going to contain 76 cards and includes everything a player needs to run a class from level 1 through level 10. It includes ancestry cards, community cards, subclass cards, and all cards from 2 domains, each unique to the class uses. It will be coming to Kickstarter. Actually, I think it might have already gone up. I'm trying to look at this little thing that they put up here, but nope, that is not Mad Muscles. That is not what I wanted. There is a Kickstarter campaign going on right now. The link for it is not working, so I can't tell you a little bit more about that, but I'm sure if you just Google Daggerheart Kickstarter, you'll find it. They have a new campaign frame called With Love and Magic, but I didn't really go into that very much. The frames are cool, especially with like Age of Umbra. I've been keeping up watching Age of Umbra recently. I like it. I like grimdark settings, and they're doing a fantastic job in the Age of Umbra and showing what these campaign frames can really do instead of a full setting. These nice little 1 to 2 page campaign frames that are in the book are really, really cool. Let's see, what do we got here? Next one, the homebrew kit. This I like. Available now as a free download at Daggerheart.com. The Daggerheart Homebrew Kit offers a robust set of resources and insights for creating new classes, ancestries, campaign frames, and more. Designed for both gaming groups and third-party publishers, the Homebrew Kit is aimed to help players look to customize their campaigns, as well as third-party publishers diving into making Daggerheart compatible content using the Darrington Press Community Gaming license. And this was also, they announced a new licensing partnership, which you guys, if you want to know more about it, I highly suggest that you go and read through it because there's a lot of shit on it. But the Homebrew Kit, I wish more. We talked about this on an episode recently. I know it was like a couple. Because Savage Worlds does it. It gives you nice rules on if you want to create spells, monsters, items. It gives you rules, species, races, classes, all that. It gives you strict rules to use to create these things and make sure that they're balanced for the game. This is what that will go along with it. The Homebrew Kit will give you, hopefully, from what it's saying here, give you rules, guidelines on how to create things for the game that will have rules in it to make things balanced. So if you do want to be a third-party publisher, makes it a little bit easier to make stuff for it. Maybe make a little extra couple bucks on the side. But as a GM that wants to homebrew their own stuff, this is much better because now it gets a little bit harder to break the game with your homebrew when there's actual rules that go into this sort of thing. And I think the last thing, other than Daggerheart, well, we don't know if it's going to be Daggerheart, but Darrington Press and Critical Role had a thing at Gen Con, of course, they do every year, where they had a live show. But they also announced Season 4, or Campaign 4, not Season 4, Campaign 4. And Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins came out and talked about it. Then Matt came out and he said that he was not going to be GMing it. And then he announced that Brandon Lee Mulligan was going to be the GM for Campaign 4 and Matt would be playing in it as a character, which is very, very exciting. Nothing has been said about what game system they're using. And since Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins were the ones that were announcing it, I wonder if it's something that they're working on, because also they made sure, other than Travis Willingham, because he doesn't say anything other than DM when they're talking about the guy that's running the game, all of them made sure to say Game Master or GM. They didn't say Dungeon Master or DM. So I'm expecting it's not going to be Dungeons and Dragons, because this game, Campaign 4, is going to be set in a different world. That's not Exandria, which I think WotC does own some parts of it, because they have the books, the Tal'Dorei books, the settings and all that. And I'm wondering if they can't do anything else, and they want to bring in something else. Of course, they want to bring in their own world and setting that they want for Daggerheart. So that's possibly what they're doing with this. But that's something to look forward to. And then this one is huge for me. Little bit about old Matt here. My favorite Dungeons and Dragons setting is Eberron, created by Keith Baker and Gene Ellis, and it was just announced that Keith Baker and Gene Ellis, are working on something for Daggerheart. Is it going to be Eberron? Fuck no, it's not going to be, because WotC still owns that. They gave Keith the boot in 2019 at one point, because he tried to take it back. He wanted Eberron back and more control over it, and they said, go fuck yourself. We own this shit. It's ours. But I do love these guys, and oh, excuse me. I think whatever they come up with, I'm going to be good with, because they've also done Phoenix Dawn Command, which is one role-playing game that's card-based that I think is actually very cool. The Adventure Zone game, which is based off of the podcast, The Adventure Zone. It's just a storytelling game, more really. It's not much of a role-playing game, but there's a lot of things that Keith and Jen have done through their what was it called? Two of a Kind games. I think was their studio or something like that. Together, sorry, TWO Together Studios. I am looking forward to that. That was all of the Daggerheart news. The next couple things that I found, so I just found some stuff that stuck out to me. As if I would try to go over everything, it would be a couple shows worth of news. Paizo partners with D&D Beyond to distribute Abomination Vaults. So the Abomination Vaults is a campaign that has been such a success for Pathfinder that D&D Beyond is going into is like partnering with Paizo to bring this adventure, put it into 5e rules, and then put it on D&D Beyond. The first time that a Pathfinder campaign has been formally updated into a 5th edition 2024 rules, of course, and a decision that may surprise some of the fans out there. WotC and also announced at this time, Chaosium also says that they might be working with D&D Beyond, which is weird. So maybe some Call of Cthulhu stuff on D&D Beyond, but I'm not sure. This is just the first go round that two of these big, the two of the biggest ones out there, Wizards of the Coast, Paizo, coming together and actually working together, which I don't think has ever happened. But this is big. I think this is a good step forward for the hobby, and I'm hoping some good things come from it. I've never looked into what the fuck was this stupid shit called? Abomination Vaults. I was always a fan of oh damn it, now I can't, I'm never gonna remember it. I loved the Pathfinder adventures were always so good. Their campaign settings are their campaign, what do they call them? Campaign, whatever they are. They did a really good job for their campaign books because they break them up into chapters, and they really did. I'm trying to remember what it is. The Flame Kings, something like that. it was the first one that came out when Savage Worlds and Paizo came together and they did the Pathfinder Savage Worlds Pathfinder collab. Uh, Very good. I love them. So maybe I might look into this, and if I ever run a D&D campaign again, maybe I'll start with Abomination Vaults, uh, just because it's been talked about with such roaring success from everybody. Of course, my number one, Sword World 2.5, is getting its official English release from Mugen Gaming. I guess they're only doing 2.5. They're not going to do Sword World Classic or 2.0. They're just going to do 2.5. But if you go to swordworldrpg.com and sign up with their email, they will send you at some point when the Kickstarter, or when, I always want to say Kickstarter because everybody in tabletop role-playing games these days does Kickstarters. When their work actually begins, and you join the mailing list, you'll get updates, previews, launch reminders, as well as a free Sword World Adventure PDF, basic rules, and some pre-gen characters to show you how to run the game. That will be running very, very soon. Other than that, so Free League, I love Free League. They're one of my favorite publishers nowadays. They've done the Alien RPG. They do Morkborg, which is fine. It's an OSR. It's more for those artists that like to look at the book more than actually play the game. But the Alien RPG, Dragonbane is super fucking cool. Monster of the Week, not Kids on Bikes. Oh, damn it, that other Scandinavian horror game that now I can't remember the name of it. But they have a new fantasy game coming out that I don't know how I feel about it. It is called Twilight Sword. And hey, David, let me know if you've heard this one before. It sounds like a game that Matt really likes. In Twilight Sword, Twilight Sword is an adventure role-playing game inspired by classic video games like Legend of Zelda, Final Fantasy, Ni no Kuni, and by the animated movies of Studio Ghibli. Sounds right up my alley, right?
Sure, yeah.
So there's a newsletter that came out, their little preview, and I downloaded their little preview that I will read in the beginning. But I don't mind crazy fantasy sometimes. I don't mind cutesy fantasy sometimes. But then there's sometimes that it just makes me go, ugh. And so there are races, which they call kin in this game. The people of Radia belong to one of 5 kin. Huma, you're humans. Kedi, standing at about half the height of a human. Kedis are anthropomorphic cats from the desert, gifted with great agility and dexterity. Okay, cat people, sure. Pengu, the tallest snow-capped peaks of Radia are home to Pengus, penguin people. Okay, penguin people. Then there's the Strix. There are Strixen of all shapes and sizes, but all of them have a round, dark head, shiny eyes, and a natural talent for magic. Okay, weird. It almost makes me think of maybe some sort of some Jim Crow shit, some some crows from Dumbo sort of thing. And then Taluna. I don't know what the Taluna hail from the coast of Radia and boast striking muscles and innate physical prowess. When I read the Pengu shit, I was like, penguin people. Okay, I can get behind crazy fantasy shit, but penguin people, ugh, I don't know, you're really pushing it now. But because it's Free League, I'm going to read it. I'm hoping I'm going to like it. This was not the news that people were hoping that they were going to get. A lot of people wanted either a Mad Max RPG, because Free League has been talking about how much they love Mad Max and how much they would love to do a Mad Max RPG. They were hoping that Free League got hold of Conan. They really wanted them to do a Conan RPG because I think they would do a really good job with a Conan tabletop. And they also wanted them to do something else, and I can't remember what it was. Those are the only two that I remember because I also thought that would be awesome. There is some news for Cyberpunk. Our Telsorian, sorry, our Telsorian came out, and they just had a slew of shit. Single player mode, which is fine for all of you guys out there that like to play tabletop RPG solo. They're actually going to create their own GM emulator so that you can do it. Night City 2045. This is going to be a very cool book. Has over 450 locations with links to night cities of both 2020 and 2077. Art of the street scenes from every district in Night City. The book will be aiming for the end of 2025 or early of 2026. The Cyberpunk 2077 campaign book, going off of the video game instead of where we were when Cyberpunk Red actually came out. Cyberpunk Red takes place in 2050. The video game was in 2077. So now they're going to go ahead and bring out a book that if we want to be in 2077, you can. There are a couple new books coming out, but it's your usual splat books for Cyberpunk games. Everybody should know all about those. The last one I'm going to bring up is because Dungeons and Dragons 2024 books don't have any official setting. Of course, they're going to be making setting books. And the two have been now announced. The two Forgotten Realms books, Adventures in Faerun and Heroes of Faerun. So Adventures in Faerun will have the western region of Kalimshan, best known for sprawling deserts, and embrace a non-Western fantasy concept. The setting's design is shifting away from its past and was developed in partnership with academics of cultural and religious studies in North Africa, the north-oriented Dale Lands, which is perhaps the more high fantasy of the 5 regions, the fae-themed Moonshae Isles, the frostbitten and cold Icewind Dale, and the dark, urban-oriented Baldur's Gate. So in these books, of course, they wanted not to just focus on the Sword Coast, they wanted to open it up. So now they're going to have a lot more of the actual lands of Toril in the Adventures in Faerun book. The book will contain 50 of D&D's new 2-page format dungeons that are intended to be easy to pick up and run. The range across the regions and level spectrums. There are also a lot of tools in the book to bring flavor to the stories, including new options for developing renown with factions. An idea that was introduced in the 2024 rule set. The book will also hold stats for iconic villains from Forgotten Realms history, including options to run a Chosen of the Dead 3 if players wish to have a campaign involving Baldur's Gate 3 villains like Lord Gortash or Orin the Red. There are also specialized humanoid stat blocks in the book, such as special stats for Drow. In Heroes of Faerun, the player side guide for future Forgotten Realms adventures focused primarily on providing players with the new tools and options to bring unique flavors to the game. The team announced 8 new subclasses: College of the Moon Bard, Knowledge Domain Cleric, Banneret Fighter, Oath of the Noble Genie Paladin, Winterwalker Ranger, Scion of the 3 Rogue, this a Baldur's Gate thing again, Spellfire Sorcery, and Blade Singer Wizard. The book will also introduce Circle Magic, a tool that will allow multiple spellcasters to team up and cast high-level spells and add additional effects to it. Players who want to be involved with iconic Forgotten Realms factions like the Harpers or the Cult of the Dragon will now have options for how to build relationships and renown with them. As they interact or perform tasks with the groups, they may earn a number of in-story benefits. These may include things like housing, discounts, magic items, NPC allies on request, and in at least one case, a dragon egg. The factions will include Cult of the Dragon, the Emerald Enclave, the Harpers, the Lord's Alliance, Order of the Gauntlet, the Red Wizards of Thay, and the Zentarum. So those are the big things that I saw come out of Gen Con that I wanted to bring up for this show. Like I said, there is so much more that I could have brought up that I read over, but that would be hours of just little shit like that makes no real sense and really is just to incentivize you all to hear it and go, I want to go check that out. So, before my voice totally goes away, I'm going to hand it over to Dave because Dave is kind of like taking over the main topic of today. So, David, why don't you go ahead and just take it away?
Yeah, sure. There was yeah, that was a lot of stuff from Gen Con. It
Yeah.
was a lot of stuff. Before we kind of segue into the main topic, I wanted to note that I think it's peculiar that you would have rules for how to homebrew something. That's like not what a homebrew is. A homebrew is you come up with it. And it would probably be better to call it something like a DIY kit. Like
Yeah, it is.
here's how to like do it yourself,
It's
I
still
guess.
home brewing. Like you're coming up with what it is, but here they're just saying this is how you make it so that it's balanced in the game.
But to me, that means you're not coming up with it. You're playing by their rules. A
True.
homebrew to me is creating your own rules. But
Mm-hmm.
whatever, semantics.
Yeah.
Uh, I think the word you were looking for is gazetteer. Is that the word you were looking for? You were
May
like, what do they call them? They call them something and like whatever. But maybe I'm
no,
thinking of something else. Um,
no, no. They were campaign paths, is what they were called.
okay. Because I thought they're different campaign. They used to call campaigns gazetteers,
Mm-hmm.
or like it'd be like the Greyhawk Gazetteer would be like the
Right.
campaign setting.
No, this
Um,
was the Paizo Pathfinder one.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I think it's cool that they're trying to incorporate more of the world. I've complained about that in the past, where it's like, look, I mean, it's cool and all that you kind of have, the Sword Coast, but isn't there more of a world that doesn't just feel like medieval Central Europe? Isn't there
Yeah.
like a Scandinavia, or like the old like Al-Qadim setting was much more like Arabian Nights, and that could be cool. And you can also have like Oriental adventures, like that would be really fucking cool. But they kind of got away from that in the last couple of editions, and it was unfortunate because they all added some flavor and texture. Uh, I like it better that they're regions of the same world as opposed to the reasons that I never really got deep into like the Al Qadim setting, for instance. Is like, well, look, it's like I'm cool to run kind of an Arabian Nights kind of adventure. I don't know that I want to be like hemmed into that. I don't want to be have to commit to that like full on all the time. But if it's
Yeah.
just different regions of the world, then you can have different flavors and all that stuff. And I think that's kind of neat. Um, but no, we were like, as a way to segue into our main topic, it occurred to me either we were talking about on the community question or perhaps on the main show last week that I've alluded to on several different occasions that plot and story are not the same thing.
Mhm.
And I felt like we did an episode on this. I really, really did feel like we did an episode about the difference between plot and story. And if any listeners out there happen to like recall us doing that episode and want to like write in to let us know, like, yeah, you fucking talked about this already, then by all means do. But it just feels so familiar to me that I assume that we talked about it when in reality maybe we haven't actually delineated. Um, Probably because there's not like a whole ton to say about the differences between plot and story, except the main key point is that I hear them used interchangeably, and they're not really interchangeable. The plot is one component of the story, and that the plot is important because it like is the skeleton of the story. That you really can't have a story without a plot. Unless you're Paul Thomas Anderson, apparently. He loves to make movies that have no fucking plot. Um, but anyway, I digress. So, the plot is the sequence of events that are bullet points in the action that happens. And what they do is they push the story toward a resolution. And so, when you're thinking of plot points, this was the point that I was making at the community question, I believe it was last week, that sometimes if you conflate them, then you mistake one for the other. And that's not good. So we'll get to kind of what story entails as a larger concept. But suffice it to say that anytime you're starting with a narrative, the plot should be foremost. this will help you simplify your adventures. It will help you understand what you're driving at by having a sequence of events that do a few things. They push the plot forward, typically by raising the stakes in some way. They present complications to the character's goals. In an adventure, this is often going to be like unexpected information. So it might take the form of some sort of exposition. It could be a plot twist of some sort. It could be often is a violent conflict, a big fight. These are all things that arrive at the conclusion of the main plot arc. That is not to say that it's the same as the characters' plot arcs, but they should be pretty close to one and the same. I was giving this advice to the questioner on the community question last week that having side quests and side arcs, character arcs, try to always figure out a way you can tie it to the main plot, and then everything kind of goes organically and moves in the same direction. So many times, I hear this in my writing group all the time with people, where it's like they start talking about something they're going to write, and you ask them about it, and they start with something like, oh, I had this really great idea for this magic system, or I had this really great idea of like, you know, this I wanted to explore themes of X, Y, or Z. It's like, no, those things are great, and having a good idea of what sort of themes you want to touch on, or what sort of rules govern your world, those things are great. Um, but they're not the plot. Like when you
Hmm.
hear something from somebody as to like what is this fucking about, like a movie. For what is the movie about? That should be the plot. You should tell someone in clear, simple terms, in a couple of sentences, what the plot of if you can describe it in clear, simplistic terms. Uh, Comp on the verge of divorce gets marooned in a skyscraper held up by terrorists and has to fight for his life to prove his love for his wife. What is that? You know what that is, right? It's like two sentences, and you're like, that's fucking Die Hard. I know,
Hmm.
like, I'm super familiar with that plot. Now, you could get into, the themes of like, uh, dynamics between the characters and kind of like, the action sequences and the character motivations and the arc between, McLean and the other cop and what that says about his character. And it's like, that's all great stuff, but it's not like what the story is doing, what the plot is doing, rather. So you need to have that first and foremost. If you're thinking of an adventure, try to think of just in basic terms, what are the events that happen that in every session are getting the characters closer to whatever the goal of the adventure is. Once you have that, you can explore other elements of the story. And you should be exploring other elements of the story. Those would include the themes, the motifs, the individual character relationships, the characters' backstories, how it informs what they do, their personal arcs, relationships with the other PCs or NPCs, mentor and protege, uh, romantic entanglements, whatever. Those relationships are definitely part of the the story as well, um, as well as the history of the world, world building. A magic system or something, for instance, is part of world building.
Hmm.
And if you know anything about the Harry Potter series, you know how much a poorly conceived world building can sometimes raise a lot of questions in your like narratives. So I'm not saying that world building isn't important, but world building needs to be cohesive with the plot
Hmm.
and not convenient for the plot, right? You build a plot and then you need to make sure that the world building that goes around it is cohesive with it and that they support each other instead of giving excuses, one giving excuses for the other. Um, I'm trying to think of other elements that would be included in the story, but aren't the plot. Uh, so yeah, I really can't think of very many other things, but I'm sure there are all sorts of stuff. Um,
Well, you could
Part
also
of the
have, yeah, ruling governments, hell, even the denomination of their money.
Yeah, but I would say that would fall under history and world building.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Um,
saying. Yeah.
but yeah, like all this stuff contributes to how someone experiences the game, right?
Hmm.
That's all part of the story. Or as I heard someone once say, I want to say it was Matthew Fox, like this writing YouTuber guy, um, and I think he said that the plot, if you thought about it like a sporting event, that, and I might have used this analogy before, which is probably why I have a recollection that we've spoken about this before. Um, but the if you thought about it like a sporting event, like say the Super Bowl, the plot is what happens on the field, right? It's the game that's played, the score that happens, who wins, who loses. The story would be all of the fans in the stadium and what the game means to them. Any storylines about players that were traded, and maybe one they used to play for another, team, and they got traded to this team, or whatever. Old rivalries, Ohio State, Michigan, right? The rivalries, what it means to the city, and the people that live in the city, or in a Boston strong kind of way, in the wake of the um, Boston Marathon bombing, for instance. None of that was the actual game. It wasn't the plot of what happened. But it is still part of the bigger story, which is why we are rabidly in love with sports. Not me, but people in general are rabidly in love with sports, not just for the plot, but for the whole story that it tells. And so I thought that was a really apt analogy, one that pretty much anybody can understand as a, like, the game that's being played. But make no bones about it, there still needs to be a game played, and you
Hmm.
wouldn't mistake the rivalry between um, Ohio State and Michigan as the game that was played. You would still talk about the game in terms of the game, and the rivalry would inform what that game meant.
Hmm.
Um, and so a lot of discussions around sports tend to kind of get get away from that sometimes, and I think that's part of what I don't like about them, is that they're stories that are less plot driven than they ought to be. And a plot driven story is a good one, and frankly, you could strip away most of what happens in a story, but you couldn't strip away the plot. It holds
Hmm.
everything up. And so you can have just a story that is very, very, I mean, that's what like a straightforward dungeon crawl one shot is. I mean, it's just a story with just a plot. You have to go in here and you have to like find this bad guy and kill
Yeah.
him. And you have pre-gen characters, so they don't have any histories and probably not much personality. They have capabilities and stuff, and you go like, well, the context of why you're here, it's you to kill the bad guy and get the gold. And it's like, you can run that and it can be perfectly fun. The richer stories tend to have more of these elements of
Hmm.
motif and theme and history and world building and things that are unique to everything that make you want to understand. But those are really just ways of raising the stakes. You have a tendency, the plot has more gravity, the more stakes there are, and the more invested you are in something, because these characters have a history and they have relationships, and there's old rivalries and grudges, and this ancient evil is returning and it's done before and plunged the world into darkness. And all that's just another way of just saying that all raises the stakes of like what's happening in the game of the narrative. And so it tends to make it a little more satisfying than just kind of a straightforward hack and slash sort of adventure. But I don't know that I've really kind of got into the weeds of delineating between them. I'm gonna be quiet
Well,
now and let Matt
I
weigh in here
think,
again.
yeah, I think uh, another reason why we probably think that we've done this episode already is because we talked about it in different ways. Like when we were talking about mystery games, Call of
Hmm.
Cthulhu games, and all that. Because the story is the what and the why, but the
Hmm.
characters are the plot, really, because
Yeah.
they are the how. They are the
Yeah.
ones that are how things are done. They're the ones that make the decisions on how the story concludes or what happens. So I think that's another reason why we've talked about it, because we talked about it in that way.
When it comes to Call of Cthulhu, I bet you I was. it's another element that I didn't include earlier. I said theme and motif, but what I didn't say is tone and mood.
Hmm.
Those things are pretty closely related. I know we did a show on tone and how to kind of govern your tone, but certain certain worlds, certain types of games, they have a certain tone to them. It's part of the reason, or a certain mood, atmosphere is probably a better word, a certain atmosphere to them. And it's part of what I like about Barbarians of Lemura is I like that atmosphere, and I think the system plays to that particular genre and atmosphere. And as much as I have said this before, I'm not like a huge fan of Call of Cthulhu, but it has mood and atmosphere like in fucking spades. Like
Hmm.
it's part of what makes it fun to play, even though the system itself I think is needs a lot of work.
Yeah, I'll
but
agree with that.
but it's just fun to play like a 1920s or 30s like academic or investigator like uncovering these eldritch horrors, and it's like it's mystery driven and you're peeling this onion and it's fatalistic and it's like it's super fucking cool. And so that's it has that, even if it doesn't have typically doesn't have much of a story or much of a plot. Even in a Call
Hmm.
of Cthulhu game, it's usually just some sort of mystery you're trying to
Yep.
uncover. And so yeah, I think it probably came up there to like not mistake one for the other, because if you did um in
Well,
a
that might
Call of
be
Cthulhu.
why it was brought up, because of the difference in it, because of how the keeper in Call of Cthulhu creates the story or runs the story, but the players
Mhm.
are the plot of the mystery. Uh, so maybe that was guy was saying why we keep thinking that we've done this episode already is because we've talked about it in little bits here and there throughout a lot of different episodes, talking a lot of different genres. And that was one that just made me think of it, that because I also remember us talking about how the players push the plot.
Yeah.
If it isn't for them, the plot does not proceed anywhere.
Yeah, but I came up with Call of Cthulhu precisely because certain games are more that way.
Hmm.
Certain games, the plot drives the players. Some orcs invade a village, so the players need to defend the village. Someone kidnaps a princess, so the players have to go save the princess. Some, cataclysm happens and ruins a, region, and the characters need to restore its water supply. Plot drives the characters into action. That's much
Mm.
more heroic fantasy. Whereas, for instance, in low fantasy, it's typically more character driven, where the characters kind of grudges, their sense of honor, their pursuit of just, great amounts of wealth, they drive them into misadventures. And then there's some external factors that complicate it. Whereas in a mystery game, it much more is the players drive the plot, because they need to decide what information they're trying to uncover. And there's some plot twists and stuff in there, but the cautionary tale in a mystery game is don't ever think that you don't need to have at least a basic structure of a plot. And in a mystery, if the players are trying to uncover the mystery, then likely that plot has already happened, and you need to kind of establish, well, what happened, so that I can establish what happened after, right? The investigation is a plot that they're uncovering. They're uncovering a thing that already happened and took place, and then now they're just kind of discovering different elements of it. So that makes the mystery genre unique like that. It's not an
Hmm.
action genre where things are happening around them and pushing them into the fray, or different elements of different genres. Like a sci-fi genre is going to be driven by some sort of technological advancement. And so that's probably the caution that were issuing before. But yeah, I didn't know that we kind of like laid it out in clear terms as a bit of advice to build adventures.
Hmm.
And it's probably important to think about, like, when you're building an adventure, of how where the plot goes and what the intervals are. And this has the noted benefit of helping you really, really understand what a good cliffhanger is, because good cliffhangers are typically tied to the plot and not necessarily to the story.
Yeah.
There could be some big character reveal maybe, or something, that could be more of a soft cliffhanger, but typically most of your big high energy cliffhangers that are going to be the end of an adventure segueing into another adventure, or the end of a penultimate session, leading up to a final confrontation or something are going to be plot driven. It's not to say that you couldn't have like character driven cliffhangers, and a lot of your soft cliffhangers might be more character driven, where maybe someone learns something about their past or they have some sort of cathartic moment, and those can be great, but definitionally they're not going to hit as hard because they probably just deal with one character. If they deal with all of the characters, if there's some sort of character thing that handles that rotates around the entire party, then it should just be tied to the main plot. Like you just link it up to the main plot so everything goes in the same direction, and that works pretty neatly. So it has the most impact when it involves all of the characters, and everything revolving around the main plot ought to revolve around all the characters.
All right. I got nothing else to add on to this. I didn't do as much homework as you did for the main topic or had anything on his mind. I was too busy reading fucking pages and pages of Gen Con news. So if you got anything to take us away there, David, you got anything to add on to the end here?
I mean, I didn't do a lot of homework, I guess I'll say. It's just a bunch of chop suey in my brain, and I just realized I never put it together in one meal, so I was trying to do that for everybody. But
Yeah.
no, I got nothing else.
I think it's good. Hey, all of you out there, do you want us to talk about anything else? Do we need to elaborate a little bit more on this topic? Tough shit. Listen to a lot of our other episodes. I swear to God, we salt and pepper this shit into every single episode when we're talking about the difference of story and plot. But David is correct. It is something that is very, it's important to know the difference between, the both of them. So I'm dragging this stuff along here because I'm trying to find the outro button. Found it. But if anyone out there also, you have any other questions, you want us to talk about some other shit, or you want to talk about how awesome we are, and you just want to say, good job, boys, send it to insidethegmstudio@gmail.com. Hell, did you go to Gen Con? Did you get to try any of this stuff? Let me know, please. I want to know really bad. I haven't gotten to go to Gen Con in a long time. So send us an email, or you can always come and watch us live, usually every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/InsideTheGMStudio. Come watch us live. You can find us on YouTube as well by just going to YouTube, look up Inside the GM Studio, you'll find it. Speak in the chat, ask us some questions, let's hang out. But for this week, for Inside the GM Studio, I have been your host, Matt.
And I'm David.
A good night.